I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
Princess Catherine's fingers stopped just before they touched the velvet case. It was already open. One tiara was missing. Across the table, Meghan didn't look surprised. She looked prepared. Then the palace solicitor placed a sealed envelope between them. "There is another will." The words landed harder than any accusation. If the document was genuine, the forbidden tiara collection Catherine had spent years protecting might never have belonged to her family in the way anyone believed. Every face in the room changed because someone had lied, not yesterday, for generations. Before we continue, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Then the solicitor broke the royal seal, and everything the palace had buried began to surface. For years, the collection had existed almost as a myth inside palace walls. It wasn't part of the crown jewels. It wasn't displayed to the public. Officially, it barely existed. A handful of handcrafted tiaras had been passed quietly between generations of royal women under rules so strict that even senior staff rarely spoke about them. One rule mattered above all others. They could never become symbols of personal power. They belonged to duty, not ambition. That was why the new will felt impossible. According to its faded pages, an earlier royal relative had written that the collection should someday pass to the woman capable of protecting the family's future beyond tradition. The sentence was devastating because it named no one, not Catherine, not Meghan, no heir, only a standard no one could define. Within hours, every corridor inside the palace became a battlefield of whispers. Nobody knew where the document had come from. Nobody admitted requesting it, but everyone understood what it threatened. If ownership depended on interpretation rather than bloodline, decades of quiet certainty had just disappeared. Catherine never argued publicly. She simply asked for the document's history. That request uncovered something nobody expected. Deep beneath forgotten palace archives, an elderly librarian revealed an item that had never appeared in official records. A private diary, locked, unsigned, hidden behind false shelves for nearly 70 years. The pages described private conversations between generations of royal women, not politics, not ceremonies, choices, sacrifices, regrets. One passage stopped everyone cold. The forbidden tiaras are not inherited because of birth. They are entrusted after character reveals itself. Suddenly, the argument wasn't about jewelry. It was about worthiness. The diary transformed every previous assumption into uncertainty. For the first time, Catherine began wondering whether she had misunderstood the purpose of protecting the collection. Meanwhile, Meghan quietly requested permission to read the diary herself. Some viewed it as another calculated move. Others saw something different: curiosity. Perhaps even a genuine desire to understand traditions she had never fully been welcomed into. For one brief moment, the conflict almost softened. Then everything shattered. A respected palace secretary, trusted by 3 generations of royals, was caught removing copied diary pages after midnight. The discovery stunned everyone. The man had served the family for over 40 years. His loyalty had never been questioned. When confronted, he finally admitted the truth. He had been leaking carefully selected information, not because he hated anyone, because he believed constant public conflict kept the monarchy relevant in a changing world. Without drama, he feared people would stop caring. His confession disgusted nearly everyone. Yet beneath his betrayal lived something painfully human. He hadn't wanted the institution destroyed. He believed he was saving it, in his own deeply flawed way. But the damage was already done. Edited fragments of the diary began circulating among journalists. Every missing sentence changed the meaning. Every leaked paragraph fueled another headline. The family wasn't simply divided anymore. They were being manipulated. Catherine realized the real battle had never been between 2 women. Someone had been writing the conflict from the shadows. Just as the palace regained control over the leaks, another discovery emerged. This one was impossible to ignore. An old jeweler's ledger described repairs performed on one specific tiara decades earlier. Routine maintenance, at least that's what everyone assumed, until conservators examined the piece more closely. Hidden beneath one of its central gemstones sat an almost invisible compartment. Inside rested a folded letter. No one knew it existed, not historians, not curators, not even the monarch. The handwriting matched the earliest generation connected to the forbidden collection. Its contents rewrote everything. The writer confessed that the tiaras had never represented inheritance. They represented reconciliation. Each piece had originally been created after bitter family divisions, not to reward victory. To remind future generations that power survived only when pride surrendered first. Then came the final sentence. If descendants ever compete for these pieces, they have already forgotten why they exist. Silence spread through every room where the letter was read. For Catherine, heartbreak arrived differently than anyone expected. She wasn't devastated because someone might claim the collection. She was devastated because generations had protected beautiful objects while slowly forgetting the reason they had been protected. Meanwhile, Meghan found herself standing alone more often. The attention she once believed she wanted now felt strangely empty. Every accusation, every headline, every assumption, none of them reflected the complicated truth unfolding inside palace walls. She hadn't tried to steal history. She had tried to understand where she fit within it. Those weren't the same thing. But public judgment rarely paused long enough to notice the difference. Still, one final question remained. Who would ultimately decide the collection's future? The answer arrived during a private gathering attended by only a handful of senior royals. No reporters, no photographers, no speeches. The monarch entered carrying another sealed folder. Older than every previous document, verified beyond dispute. Inside rested a confidential agreement signed decades earlier after an internal family crisis that had never reached public knowledge. Its instruction was absolute. If disagreement over the forbidden collection ever threatened to divide the family itself, every individual claim would immediately become void. The entire collection would leave private possession forever. No princess, no duchess, no future queen, no personal ownership. Only permanent stewardship under an independent royal trust dedicated to preserving its true history. The room fell completely still. Years of assumptions dissolved within seconds. There would be no winner, because the agreement had anticipated exactly this moment. Catherine looked toward the cases one last time, not with triumph, not with defeat, only understanding. She finally realized the greatest privilege had never been wearing the tiaras. It had been protecting what they represented. Across the room, Meghan slowly nodded. No words passed between them. None were needed. For the first time since the conflict began, both women understood they had spent weeks fighting over something that had never belonged to either of them. Outside those walls, speculation continued. Headlines demanded heroes, villains, victors. The truth offered none. Instead, it revealed how easily incomplete stories become accepted history when fear speaks louder than facts. The forbidden collection remained untouched, locked away once again, not because it carried extraordinary diamonds, but because it carried extraordinary memory. Generations would still wonder about the mysterious tiaras. They would still invent stories, perhaps even grander ones than this. But hidden alongside every glittering jewel would remain a lesson written long before any modern rivalry began, that some legacies survive only when no one is allowed to own them. And perhaps that was the greatest secret the collection had guarded all along. If this story surprised you, let us know in the comments. If you had been in Catherine's or Meghan's position, would you have kept fighting for the collection, or accepted the truth and walked away? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and join us for the next story, where another hidden chapter may change everything you thought you knew.